Today, we're going to learn how to make a capsule stain. We're going to make 3 different ones today. So let's go ahead and label our slide. Our first stain is going to feature Klebsiella pneumoniae. And this is going to be a capsule stain, so I'm going to label it CS for capsule stain. To make a capsule stain, we're going to use skim milk in the background. What that's going to allow is the dye will stick to the skim milk in the background, and the dye will stick to the bacteria itself, but not to the capsule. So I'm going to go ahead and apply a drop of skim milk broth to the slide. My loop is already sterile. I'm going to take this skim milk broth. If you look at it, it kind of looks like skim milk. I'm going to take a loop full of that. I'm going to add it to my slide to provide some background. And now I will flame my loop. Get rid of that skim milk, burn that off, sterilize it, and let it cool. I'm going to use my sterile loop to take a sample of Klebsiella pneumoniae. Again, vortex your tube or mix it by hand. I'm going to insert my loop, get a sample of bacteria, and I'm going to mix it into my drop of skim milk. I want to be gentle with this because I don't want to disturb the capsule. And I'm going to gently spread it out thinly. Again, so I don't break the capsule. And now I will flame my loop. Put my loop in. Get it nice and hot and kill off all those bacteria. And withdraw. Now, on a capsule stain, you don't want to heat fix it, because if you heat fix it, that can destroy the capsule. So we are just going to let that air dry. While it's air drying, let's go ahead and make our second slide. This slide is going to have Pseudomonas aeruginosa. And it's going to be a capsule stain. I'm going to use my sterile loop to get a drop of the skim milk broth to serve as the background for my stain. It's my skim milk broth. I'm going to take my loop, get a sample of that broth, and put it right there in the middle of my slide. And now I'll go ahead and sterilize my loop. Let's put it into the back of the incinerator and let it get red hot. And then we'll go ahead and let it cool. And now I'll use my sterile loop to get a sample of my bacteria. Here's the Pseudomonas aeruginosa. Again, vortex or mix with your finger. Head, take my sample. And gently, so we don't disrupt the capsule, gently mix it into the skim milk on the slide and spread it out. And we'll allow it to air dry. And then I'm going to flame my loop. We'll insert that. Let it get red hot. And let it cool. The last slide is going to be oral organisms. We're going to take some from the mouth. And this is a capsule stain. I'll use my sterile loop to put some skim milk broth on the slide. Here's my sterile loop. Oh, try that again. There we go. And one last time, flame my loop. I'll insert it into the back of the incinerator. Let it get nice and hot. And then I'll go ahead and let it cool. Now for this sample, I'm going to go ahead and use a toothpick. Sometimes the hardest thing is getting them out. And I'm going to go up around the gums without drawing blood. And I'm going to try to get into those pockets of the teeth if you can. So now I should have a sample, and I'm going to take that and gently mix it into the ink on my slide. I said ink and I should have said skim milk, but I'm going to mix that into the skim milk on my slide. We'll dispose of this in biohazard. And remember, we're going to let all those slides air dry. Now that they are air dried, we're ready to go ahead and stain them. Remember that you don't heat fix for a capsule stain. So I'm going to go ahead and put them on my staining tray. So here's my 3 slides. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to coat them with crystal violet. And we're going to let that sit for 2 minutes. Now that my 2 minutes is up, I'm going to rinse with 20%, see if you can get without the glare there, 20% copper sulfate. And this you always want to rinse into a container. You never want to let any of this stain go down the sink. So I'm just going to let that rinse off. Do the same thing with my next slide. Allowing the copper sulfate to rinse off the extra crystal violet. And the same thing with the last slide. Rinse off. And now the final step is to blot dry with bibulous paper. So here's my bibulous paper, and I'm just going to take my slide, blot it dry. Take my next slide, blot it dry. And take my final slide and blot it dry. Again, gently so you don't break the slide. That would be a shame after you put so much work into it. And now we'll go ahead and look at them under the microscope, and I'll have those results posted for you. So that's how you make a capsule stain, from a solid like your mouth and from liquid. Take care, have a great day.